In our previous videos, we saw how we can create user, how we can list user, and then how consequently how we can delete those users. Now in this video, we will try to make this process, we'll try to add some new parameters to our request and make things much more aligned with the production environment when we are actually coding or developing an application for our real world customers. And also, we will see how we can return or work with related data, like the data that is related with multiple tables. What I mean to say is how we can perform joins. And this video will include how we can perform inner joins. So let's get started. Now, before we start writing code, how to perform form joins, we have to define another model which will relate with our user model or which will connect with our user model. So user profile. I've simply taken the type int. I will remove the relation fields for now. I will just keep it simple. We will mention about relation field in detail in our upcoming videos. So I will keep the user ID. You can see it has a user ID. And I will remove the name. I will add the name and phone number, which is more specific to the user profile. I will also add the address. And I would also like to add a status, which and I will keep it false. By default, I will keep it false as well. And after status, I will also add, let's suppose profile type. Let's keep it as a string for now. And in comments, I will just add, it will be more sort of an account type. Let's keep it premium. Okay, so this is our user profile. Okay, so now we have made the changes. Now, in order for the changes to be reflected in the database, we have to apply migrations. So let's go ahead and apply migrations and then perform upgrade, which will in turn create these tables in our database. I'll write Flask BP migrate. Okay, this is added to the migration file. If I open the migrations, you can see it has added a table and it has created this. Now, before moving forward, a bit about relationships and foreign keys in SQL. So in SQL or even in Flask application, we can have multiple models, which means we can have multiple tables. And these tables will be, for the most part, related with each other with some relating column or a foreign key, we call it. So this foreign key is nothing but it connects or relates one table with another. Okay, it with some information that it holds. This information can be an integer, it can be a string, a UID, it can be anything. Okay, and many times it may not be a single column, it can be a multiple column, which can be a composite key, which together, when we combine those two keys, they become unique and they are able to connect that particular table or relate that table with a different table. And not only one table, it can be multiple tables as well. For example, here we have a user ID, which is relating to our user original table. And similarly, this table can relate to another table, which can be a user, maybe segment, user profile, user tag, anything. Okay. Now here, it's important to understand what type of relationship we are establishing between these two tables. We can have different type of relationships. If we just list that down, we can have it here. We can have one-to-one relationship. We can have one-to-many relationship, and then we can have many-to-one relationship and many-to-many relationship. Okay, so what do we mean by one-to-one? Let's go one by one. So one-to-one is when we are creating some information or in our original table. This we call this original table or the parent table, whatever you want to call it. So after creating the information, now we are creating information in another table which relates to the instance or a row of the original table. Okay, for example, user profile. Now, after creating a user profile, we generally try to enter in more information like the user address, user email, maybe his account number, some extra information. Now, because it's in a different table, we need to understand, or we need to find a way to able to identify this information belongs to which user that was created originally. Okay, so in order to do that, we have to add some identifier. Okay, so that an identifier is an ID here. So this ID is nothing but this ID which was created in the original table. Okay, so that way when we are querying data from our user profile, we can understand like this user belongs to which, this information belongs to which user. Okay, now here's where type comes in. Now, after creating the user, we add the user profile information, correct? So that means here the relationship is 1-to-1 if for each user there is only one profile. Okay, now there can be cases or instances where a user might hold multiple profile. Okay, maybe in that case we can add one more field here, something like profile type, which can, or the I would say user type. Okay, it may not be suitable for user profile model, but something else, like if you want to add user like tags model, and then you will add user tags like that. Okay, so but here in our case, it's a one-to-one relationship. We will see in our future videos how we can create a many-to-one relationship towards the user. Okay, so now let's go back to our code. We will start making changes on our endpoint. Before that, I have added one more route here just to check if our application is running or not. I have added this health check. So I will open my browser and simply hit this. You can see the response is coming and our server is working fine. After making the changes, we'll go back to our endpoint and see which is our first endpoint we should modify. So it's this add user. So now add user, after adding the data in our user model, we have to add data to our user profile as well. That means we have to set additional fields. Let's open our add user. So this was our add user. Use case how we want to do this. We can add a extra key for the user profile, or we can simply set fields inside our main this JSON body that we have. Okay, let's add field in our the main JSON that we have. So I will simply open this. What else is missing? We have to add a name, and then we have to add a phone number and the address and status and the profile type. For dates, let's go ahead and add the default values. We will simply select the default. And for this as well, I would simply select the server default. So what it will do is on the creation of the row, it will simply update its created at and update at to the latest date time that we have right now. Okay, simply add this, add the names. Okay, name we already have. So I will add the phone number. Pin code 78006. And then for the status is default, and for the profile type levels. Okay, so this is done. Now let's go back to our endpoint and just verify the data by hitting this. So yeah, we are getting all the fields here. Now we need to import this extra model in our controller function, which is user profile. And here, I will simply do user profile. I will simply add the fields that are coming extra in here. Okay, now I have updated the code here. You can see for our user profile, we are taking the user ID from the user model that we have, and this is correct. For the data name, we are taking it from the same name that we are getting in the payload. Same goes for the phone number, address, and the status we have kept as 1, or you can decide to keep it as true if you want. Let's keep it as true. profile type is premium, and there is created and updated. But let's go ahead and comment this out just to test if we are if our database adds the default values for these. So this is done. Let's test this out if it works. Okay, straight away we have an error, and let's see what error we get. It's giving an integrity error saying that the user profile dot user ID cannot be null. Okay, here it is. You can see it's none, and that mostly happens is because when we do a db session add call, it will not reflect any changes into the database unless the commit keyword is hit. Okay. Now, if we want that information to be present in our variable, what we have to do is we have to run a db flush command. I would say db flush. Okay, so what it does is it sends the information to the database and it updates our variable. Okay, we can go in detail in our future videos about this, how this flush works. But for now, just know this, that after executing the flush, the information, the row that we are trying to create, that information is sent to the database and our variable is updated based on that information. Okay, now if I hit send, you can see that the information, and I think our database is also updated. Let's go back to our database and simply refresh this. Yeah, you can see the information is coming up, but our created and the updated are not reflecting, and that's because we have updated our models, but we haven't updated the migration yet. So for now, let's go ahead and uncomment this and hit this again and go back to the database and see this. And now you can see the data is coming. Okay, so for now we have just updated our add user endpoint, and we have modified the data, the way we are adding the data in the add user. Now, we will update our get user function or get user endpoint slightly so that it fetches all the user information that is stored in the user table. Okay, but with the user profile information as well. Okay, so let's update it. And so we have to modify this controller function slightly. So we will create a variable named users, which will hold all the user information. And as you can see from the type end, it is telling me to run this, write this statement db.session.query. So what this query does is it simply performs a SQL query. When we write this user, this is an ORM query again. So when we give it this user model and then filter, so whatever we add in the filter, it will filter the users based on that. Okay. The difference here is that we are not adding any filter for now. We are simply fetching all the users. So if I do all, it will simply fetch all the users. Okay. And now it is showing me to add a data as an empty integer. We'll do that. But for now, I will simply print the users here. Okay. And now I will go to my get command. I will add one more endpoint here, which will simply fetch the users. I will call it get user. And it will be get users. Yeah, it's get users. It's working fine. We are returning the data, which is hello world here. Now we want to return these users that we have fetched, but before that, let's see if we are able to see the users here. Correct. So here we can see the users that we have added. Okay, let me hit this one more time and see if it displays the users. Okay, no, it's not coming in the users. Actually, I have done the wrong. Let me move this data outside of it. We made a mistake. Remove this. Okay, this is good. Let me hit this. Okay. So you can see in the logs that it is able to fetch the users correctly. Now, if I go to my user table here, you will see I have 9 set of users created in my database. But the issue here is if I simply send this data out, there will be an error, and that you will see in a moment, whatever there will be. Straight away, you'll see that our server crashed and it is giving it's complaining us about the JSON serializable, are not serializable basically. So the issue here is that when we deal with data types in Python, and when we send the data out to the external world or over the internet, it has to be in a particular format, and there are only specific formats that it supports. One of the formats is JSON, another one is XML or string or integer. These formats we can send over the internet. But when we send it a users, which is actually an object, and if you see the field inside that, some of the fields are native date type, time type, which are Python types basically, native to Python. Okay, and these types we cannot send over the internet, and obviously it will complain about that. So what we need to do is we need to convert some of these fields uh, into into different format, which then we can send them out to the external world. Okay, so let us do like this. As you can see, so we have created ad, we have build ad, we have email. We have email, yeah, we have status, and then we have, okay, so we don't have name for now. Okay, so let's remove them or come again, even though it will still throw the error, but this is just to demonstrate. Okay, this is working for now. Okay, here you can see now we are able to see the data correctly. Okay, now it's able to parse it. So the process that I just did, it's called serialization. Okay, basically I converted Python native types into the different type or the types that our internet or the browser can understand basically. Okay, so this was all for the user data, but now our main the joining part comes here. Now I have this user model, but I also have the profile information. So I want to send out the profile information as well, which corresponds to this user information. Okay, so the way I do it is I will go back to my query or the model query which I wrote. I will, after the user query users, I will simply write join, and I will write the model name with which I want to perform the join. So I will write user profile. Okay, so this is the model with whom I'm joining. Then there will be a join condition. So on what basis I want to perform the join? So the join condition is nothing but the same identifier which is relating these two models. Okay, so here the join identifier is the user ID. We know that the user ID is actually relating, or it is holding the information which connects this model with our user model. Okay, so I will write the user profile. We have a user profile, and on that we have a column which is user ID, and if it matches the user ID, then we need to fetch that row basically, and it will perform the same operation, the same condition for all the rows. Okay, that's it. Now if we go ahead and simply run this again, okay, now you can see it has boiled down to only 2 items in the array. You must be asking why this happened. Okay, if I go back to our database and see what is actually user profile storing, there are 2 IDs, 8 and 9, and if I then go to the user, we have 8 and 9, and there are only 2 entries, and this is correct because we have a one-to-one mapping with these 2 tables. That means user will have a profile, will only have a unique profile in the user profile table. Okay, so for each user there will be 1 profile. So since we have 2 users, there will be only two profiles. Okay. Okay, but what about the extra users that we have? Okay, if I go to the user profile, those users are not present here. We don't have user with ID 1, 2, 5, 6. So those users are missing. Okay. Now, because of the type of the join that we are performing here, it is called as inner join. So what inner join does is, based on this condition, it will try to match that relating column with the parent column, with the parent table, and if it doesn't find the entry, it will simply exclude that row from the result. Okay, it will not take that row at all. Okay, but here, if I now write an after join and send the data again, and now you will see we have returned all the users. Okay, that means it has returned the users which passed the join condition, but also those users which didn't pass the join condition, for which the data was not present in the user profile. Okay, now since we are performing an outer join, I will try to fetch information from the user profile as well. Now, in order to do that, what we can do is we can simply add our model as well, user profile. Now this will work if we add both the models. What it will do is it will fetch the columns from both the tables and all the columns. Okay. Okay. So the way we do it is we have to explicitly mention all the columns that we want to fetch. So right now I will do a user ID, user email, user status, and the created at and the updated at, and then I will simply add the columns from the user profile. So I will do a user profile, I'll do a user profile phone number, address, and I think that's it. So right now I'm fetching only these ones. So I will simply uncomment them. And now here, let's see what will happen. I will simply replace the user profile with the user, because when we fetch these attributes, they all go in the users variable. And here we are fetching each row. That means this is our user row. Let me update its name so that it is a little bit more descriptive what we are doing. Okay, so this works. Let's go back to the browser and try to hit this. Okay, now here you can see we are able to fetch all the users, but our address and some of the fields are coming null. Okay, and now if we navigate to our user ID 8 and 9, for them you can see we are able to fetch the information. Now this is clear cut because we don't have these entries in the user profile, but since we are performing an outer join, it is regardless of that, regardless of the field condition, it is still able to fetch the row from the user, and then it performs a match with the empty rows, and it just fills those rows with the null values for those columns which is missing. Okay, that's how it does it. If I modify this with the inner join, you will see we will again get those two rows back, which are matching the condition. Now, this is how we perform join in Flask SQLAlchemy. Now, in our next video, we will see how we can add more data from our input payload, how we can return data with a different format, how we can return nested data, how we can return data when we have large number of row sets, and how we perform pagination and how we perform filtering on these endpoints. So right now we are sending this user, we will see how we can add query parameters, pass parameters, and then filter out these data conditionally.